Peppa and George were building a castle in the sandbox. The sand beneath their feet trembled. Suddenly, holes appeared in the ground. Dark, sticky pits. A black tentacle grabbed George's dinosaur. The holes vanished instantly. The sand felt cold, heavy. Round mounds started to rise all around. One of them opened, revealing a black, sandy mouth full of teeth. Peppa grabbed George and they ran toward the house. The mouth growled behind them. Waves of sand rippled under their feet. Evening. The backyard. Shadows were growing longer. From a new hole, George's dinosaur crawled out, covered in shiny black sand, its red eyes glowing. The toy turned its head and looked at Peppa. The dinosaur's teeth had turned black. All the sandy patches in the yard began to stir. Tentacles of black sand stretched out toward the children. The entire yard became a sea of moving black sand. A giant faceless figure emerged. In its mouth, absolute darkness. Peppa and George ran into the house. On the walls, a flickering reflection appeared. Behind Peppa stood 1,000 barely visible sandy hands. Peppa slammed the door shut. George was crying. Black sand tapped against the glass and crept up the walls of the house. Soon it began slipping under the door. Grains of sand fell from the ceiling onto Peppa's shoulder. She ran to the kitchen. The hourglass on the table flipped over, and the sand inside turned black. In the window's reflection, Peppa saw her own face, but her eyes were filled with black sand. The walls began to form a shifting message, written in sand. "You will not leave." Peppa returned to the hallway. A shadow flickered. George was standing there, but without a face and with eyes made of black grains. In the corner of the room, the sand gathered into a tall arch, through which distant laughter could be heard, though no one was laughing. Peppa walked into the store. Miss Rabbit was standing by a vending machine, fixing something. Pay attention to the mirror on the wall. In its reflection, a different Miss Rabbit. Black eyes, a mouth stretched ear to ear, black liquid dripping from the corners. Peppa said anxiously,
"Miss Rabbit, something's not right."
Miss Rabbit approached the mirror. In her reflection, the same terrifying smile. Her face briefly aligned with the reflection. Black eyes, a wide grin.
"Trick of the light, haha,"
she said casually. Peppa noticed a mirrored jewelry box on the counter. It was empty inside, the bottom made of mirror. But in the mirror of the box, not Peppa's reflection, but writhing black tendrils reaching downward. It wasn't a window, it was a door. Peppa dropped the box and shattered it. Black liquid seeped from the shards, and thin tendrils crawled out of it. They slowly reached for Peppa's legs. Panicked, Peppa ran deeper into the store and leapt into a dark back room, slamming the door shut. On the back wall, a large antique mirror covered with a dusty cloth. The cloth twitched as if someone were breathing behind it. Suddenly, it flew off by itself. In the mirror, not Peppa, but a distorted version of her. Black eyes, a wide, unnatural smile. Tendrils burst from the mirror, gripping the frame. The reflected Peppa reached a hand through the mirror. Her fingers dripped with black liquid. The real Peppa slowly walked forward, eyes wide. She wasn't moving on her own. There was the sound of glass cracking, distorted Peppa laughter, the rustle of tendrils. Peppa stepped out of the back room. She was smiling, but her eyes flashed red for a split second. A black drop slid from the corner of her mouth, a shard of mirror on the floor. In it, the same horrifying reflection of Peppa flickering. Peppa put on an old record. The cheerful melody suddenly crackled and slowed down. Old songs remember more than words. Shadows stretched toward Peppa. On the TV, the silhouette of Mr. Melodious. A whisper from the speaker.
"Peppa, George, onto the stage."
Black tar flows from the speaker. A thud from above. Child's room. The squeak of toys. A tentacle of tar burst out of the speaker. Peppa jumped back. The shadow of the turntable grew up to the ceiling in the shape of Melodious. The conductor calls the orchestra. Peppa ran upstairs. Tar was chasing her. The stairs rippled like water. Shadows of the railing. Tentacles. On the landing, Peppa looked back. Below stood Melodious. A flick of his spike. Drops of tar dripped from above. On the steps, distorted notes. Peppa burst into the nursery, slammed the door shut. Suddenly, a knock sounded. A refuge or a stage. George froze. Boys jerked in sync. Wallpaper, pulsating notes. The ceiling, hanging tentacles. George turned around. Black eyes. A mechanical smile. From his mouth, a distorted hum. Boys marched toward Peppa. The teddy bear clicked its jaws. Everyone in formation. The door opened. opened. A ghostly mom. Her face blurred, her mouth a howling melody. The conductor is pleased with new voices. Peppa rushed toward the door. Mom grabbed her with tentacle-like hands. George stood up and pulled Peppa inside as toys surrounded them. Tar sealed the window, the staircase, nursery walls, sheet music stands. The ceiling presses down. The conductor found his soloists. Tar bound Peppa tight. Melodious bowed deeply. Hollow eye sockets, crimson light. Melodious waved his spine. Mom and George opened their mouths, and a deafening howl erupted. Peppa twitched in rhythm. Tar covered her eyes. An endless game began.